Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our BTCC channel. We're doing a 2024 season review. With me is my good friend Ben. Say hello.
Hello.
So we're talking about the 2024 British Touring Car season. Now, the season finished a couple of weeks back. We thought we'd give it time to let the dust settle and to let Jake Hill enjoy his championship. He has recently got his hands on the trophy at the prize ceremony, as of when we're recording this in November. But we're just going to chew the fat with the 2024 season. There's nothing in particular covering race by race or anything like that. If you want to see in particular race meetings or any particular race meetings, we do have our race reviews up on the channel. Or of course there is the season review, which should be out on DVD this coming Christmas. Be sure to pick a copy up. This is not a sponsored advertisement, but yeah, there's that. Anyhow, so 2024 season saw Jake Hill crowned as champion, with Tom Ingram your runner-up and Ash Sutton finishing in third place in the championship. However, there was a lot of different trials and tribulations during the season, so we're going to cover a few points. First thing being the driver and team changes before, during, and late way into the season. And then the next point we'll cover after that will be the championship standings. We'll cover them in full. And after that, we'll move on to the championship itself with our favourite moments from the season. So if you want, we'll put chapters down in the description. Should be a bit of background footage if you fancy watching the video. There's something there to watch with some bit of music and text and so on. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. If not, feel free to leave us on in the background. Just have a listen. Do with what you wish. Okay, so let's kind of move into our first segment. So, what driver and team changes were there for 2024? Well, to start off with, Chris Smiley returned to the series after having last race for Accelerate back in 2021. He was driving for the new outfit, which was Restart Racing, alongside Scott Sumpton, who came from TCR UK over into the British Touring Cars, who also made his debut. Unlimited Motorsport joined the touring car grid from the ashes of Team Hard, and they end up racing as Duckham's racing with Bartcard, with Darrell De Leon being their one and only driver, being a one-man team. In terms of changed teams, we had Josh Cook and Aidan Moffat. They moved from the One Motorsport team with the Honda Civic over to LKQ Euro Car Parts with Cinetic, which was another half of the Toyota Gazoo Racing outfit. Andrew Watson moved to Powermax Racing from Toyota. Rob Huff moved from the Team Hard, so GoFix with Auto Breakdown Team Hard outfit, into the Toyota garage, which was interesting. It was a welcome addition after, I think, 20 years away from coming in. During the season as well, albeit for two races, which was, for one race weekend, which was a shame really, because I think he deserves more. Was of course Bobby Thompson, who came in with Zeus Cloud Racing with WSR and put on a great spectacle. In terms of people who left the BTCC, Rory Butcher took a sabbatical year to focus on his family. Stephen Jelly, George Gamble, Jack Butel and Dan Lloyd all departed and moved to the Porsche Carrera Cup, Great Britain. Ricky Collard went back to the British GT. Jade Edwards left British Touring Cars after she failed to secure financial backing earlier in the year. However, she went on to work with ITV Sport to be one of their key pundits and did a very good job with that job, if I do say so myself. Team Dynamics, despite the fact that they left Touring Cars, they returned to the series as the technical partner to the Accelerate team in the multi-year deal. One Motorsport took a sabbatical, focused on the 2025 season, and Motorsport Performance changed its name in the off-season to Alliance Racing. Mid-season changes go for Bobby Thompson, obviously joining for the Stetterton round. We'll get to him in a minute. Ronan Pearson parted ways with the Accelerate Team Bristol Street Motors, whichever way you call them, after the knockout round, and he was replaced with Dan Zelos, who was the mini champion, as in the Club Mini champion. And he was his replacement for the last three race meetings of the year. So, despite all that, quite a lot to digest there, isn't it, Ben, really, for everything that happened?
It was an interesting season of sorts, definitely. Like I say, there's a couple of ones there what are interesting. Obviously, there's the second Toyota team, which I kind of liked because it means you've now got a bit more strategy and you've got a couple more chances of getting somewhere with the car. I always quite like when stuff like that happens. There's a bit more of an option there. The restart racing coming in is quite an interesting one. Seeing how a team comes in from obviously another type of touring car, what's British focus. So they should know some of the tracks. They should know obviously like what sort of is the crack about it. And it's a bit more interesting to see that take on it and how they did in the season. And like the main one, you talked about quite a bit on before we started recording was like Ronan Pearson when he suddenly disappears at Knockhill. And as far as me and you are aware, we still don't know what actually went on there. Dan Zelos did a really good job in the car, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a bit of a weird one.
I generally thought Zelos was going to struggle. Like, I knew he was a mini champion, but I thought, because we've seen how certain drivers, they're rated highly in other series, and then they come into touring cars and they struggle. I mean, it's the same with F1 in a way. They've come from F2 and they jump to F1 and they're not as good. But I always think touring cars has a high ceiling as well. Like, I know F1's supposed to be like the pinnacle or IndyCar or whatever. But with British touring cars, it's just as hard to jump into a good car and be good. And Dan Zelos didn't win any races. He didn't set the world on fire in like 100 million different ways. But given for the fact that he was Pearson's replacement, I'd say he was right on the pace. Not from the word go. I'm not saying like Ingram's pace, but he was way above, sorry about this by the way, Nick Alsted's pace. He was way above that. And I think that put him on a nice like playing field against the other drivers. He seemed to get on with some of the other drivers as well, which was really, really good.
Yeah, like I said, there's quite a few times where you'd see he would be around 5th and stuff at points. It wasn't like he couldn't do the job. There's something to look at with him. I hope definitely he gets like a proper drive in British touring cars next season. It'll be interesting to see what can do with another year and a full year on his belt.
Well, speaking of a full year, I think we could probably move into the main like championship standings. So we're just going to quickly run through these just to give you like the full picture of all the championship standings. So Jake Hill was obviously champion, 421 points out of Ingram and Sutton. Then we had Turkington, Camish, Cook, Aaron Taylor-Smith, Adam Morgan, Rob Huff and Tom Chilton round out the top 10. Then you had 11th to 22nd, you had Dan Rowbottom, Mikey Doble, Aidan Moffat, Andrew Watson, Sam Osborne, Ronan Pearson, Chris Smiley, Darryl DeLeon, Dan Zelos, Bobby Thompson, Scott Sumpton and Nick Halstead. That was the Drivers' Championship. Manufacturers, nice small competition, but still. BMW reigned triumph over Ford, 818 points versus 795. Accelerate Motorsport or Hyundai, 694, 50 points ahead of Toyota in 4th. In terms of the team's championship, it was Napa Racing who won that one with Bristol Street Motors in 2nd, Team BMW 3rd, LKQ Euro Car Parts with Cinetic, wish they didn't make these team names so bloody long, in 4th. Evans Allshaw, Powermax Racing, 5th, Lace Tools Racing, MB Motorsport, 6th, Toyota Gazoo Racing, 367 in 7th, Restart Racing, 181 in 8th, Duckham's Racing with Unlimited Motorsport in 9th, and Zeus Cloud Racing with WSR, which is the Bobby Thompson team, in 10th with 34 points. Independent drivers was Aaron Taylor-Smith versus Mikey Doble. Aaron Taylor-Smith came out on top, with Chris Smiley rounding out the top 3 on that one, Darryl DeLeon 4th, and Scott Sumpton in 5th. The Darryl DeLeon and Sumpton not too far away from each other. Independent teams, it was a pretty easy competition for Powermax Racing. They powered away with it. 591 points versus 501 for Restart Racing and 408 for Duckham's Racing. Jack Sears Trophy saw Mikey Doble win comfortably ahead of Sam Osborne, Darryl DeLeon, Scott Sumpton, Ronan Pearson, who was probably on track to be a good contender during the entire year, really. With Nick Alstead and Dan Zelos to round that out. And then the Goodyear Wingfoot Award. Turkington was the winner on that one. Ingram 2nd, Sutton 3rd, Camish 4th, Cook, Hill, Morgan, Taylor-Smith, Dan Rowbottom, Andrew Watson, Tom Chilton, Mikey Doble, Rob Huff, Darryl DeLeon, Chris Smiley, Ronan Pearson, Sam Osborne, Aidan Moffat, Bobby Thompson, Scott Humpton, Nick Alstead and Dan Zelos to round out that one. So we had some interesting champions altogether for that one. But the main thing to kind of focus on here, that I just want to focus on primarily here, Ben, is how Hill managed to do it. How he managed to get to the top. He finally got his goal. And just kind of looking at the grid, I'll put it on the screen for everyone to see, but the grid that you're looking at right now on screen is the entire grid of all the results throughout all 30 races this year. And me and Ben had a look at this before, didn't we? And we spotted that Hill, apart from on a select few occasions, he barely finished outside of the top 5. He had 1 retirement compared to Ingram's 2.
Yeah, I think I said top 6 because he does have the odd 6. He has the 6th place as well, but even still, the top 6.
Then he was barely out of that. I would say top 5, but top 6. He's
top
out
5, and he has 1 6. So even still, the top 5 is insanity.
Just to give you context as to how good his form was, apart from the bad weekend he had at Brands Hatch Indy the first time round and the second race at Croft, the guy just couldn't stop winning. I mean, I know we talk about Sutton being dominant, and believe me, Sutton's dominance last year was it was way worse than this, I'll be honest. But
that was Audi levels of fun.
Yeah, that was very dominant, but the fact that Hill got as many wins as he did, and Ingram still managed, credit to Ingram as well. But my God, it was a fight and a half this year between them two, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It was you look at the top 2, and it's insane how Ingram managed to keep it going to the final weekend. And then you look at Sutton, who obviously last year was Mr. Insanely Dominant, and his season was, apart from the first 7 races of the year, it just went downhill after that. Once he got that 20th, it was he got the odd one, but it didn't get much better really for him. It was pretty rough. You look at how many first places he has in the year, and what is it, 3? It's it wasn't Sutton's year at all.
Right, but as you can tell from the grid, he's 7 podiums in a row.
Yeah, that kept him going, I think.
Boot. It went mad. I think it was, by the time after we got ahead of Snett, I think, or even Thruxton, might have been Snetterton, I think it was when Hill hit the front. But Sutton was near enough leading.
Yeah, he did lead the championship for a lot.
Because of the fact he was consistent with his podiums, which was astonishing, really, because we was oh, here we go again. It's just Sutton's going to win another title. But the thing is, Sutton had a crap run of form in the mid-season, as Alton Park shows on that grid.
Yeah, I think NAPA as a whole had a bad mid-season.
He didn't do too bad. He finished 60 points off in the end. But, regardless of that, that you can tell that Jake's had, obviously, like we said, Jake's had an absolute flyer, but at the start of the season, to be honest, the start of the season would have told you who was going to be in the title fight, because Ingram, Sutton and Hill, first, second and third, 2 races in a row in the exact same order. And then you've got the race after that, to which point Sutton finished 3rd ahead of Ingram, ahead of Hill. But it was just mad. You just wouldn't think that out of everyone that came to the front, you was you knew Sutton was going to be up there. You knew Ingram was going to be up there. And people kept writing off Hill, I think, last year, and was Hill's going to have to really sort his stuff out if he's going to do well. And at Brands, I thought, that's it. It's game over. Ingram had a bad score because he finished 18th. He didn't score anything in the 3rd race, and Hill retired in the 2nd race, and I thought, oh God, here we go again.
Yeah, it was one of them where it did
early form,
look like an Ash season, for the first, sort of third of it as such. It was it's going Ash's way, because even if you look at after Snett, after he gets to 20th, he's still getting reasonably consistent bits here and there, but it does start to slowly get worse, at which point the others just got better. Hill got better from Snetton, really.
It's one of the key points in the season as well, and I think we can probably agree with this. So, we were mentioning some of our favourite points in the season, just to kind of mention one of my personal favourites was, actually, there was 2 in 1, which was at the Snetterton round early in the season. So we mentioned earlier that Bobby Thompson showed up, he came in, And unbeknownst to me, I had two of my my favorite parts of the season happen in one go, which was it was a greasy or I think it was greasy or a wet Snetterton. I think we had.
It was at least damp. I can remember. I remember it wasn't a dry track.
And Hill had a 10-second time penalty that he had to overcome.
Yeah,
and
he
did not slow down. I think his finishing margin was like nearly 20 seconds, so it was like 10.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there was like 3 laps to go, and he'd already surpassed that 10-second.
And the rest. And he
kept
on going and going.
Yeah, it was silly.
And then Bobby Thompson on the other side of the garage. Bear in mind, the only race weekend he did was Snetterton. And he finished second on his debut for WSR. I mean, and granted, he only finished 7th and 8th in the second and the third race, but I think that was due to maybe bad tyre choice or the car just wasn't as good as for him from what he was saying afterwards. But
yeah,
this is a guy that, granted, probably, and I think people here might be able to agree with that or not, which is that Bobby Thompson's a guy that literally deserves... He's one of them, like, you know, where there's a really good guy out there and he never gets the chance to be at a good team, or when he does, it doesn't last long. That's Bobby Thompson's luck.
Yeah,
he got put in one of the best cars on the grid, in one of the best teams on the grid, driving for one of the best manufacturers.
Yeah, and he did it.
And he did really well. Granted, alright, his second place versus the 7th and 8th, it doesn't really matter, but points do mean prizes. And I do believe that had Bobby Thompson not stepped in, because if you knock the points off that he got, BMW would have lost the title, the manufacturers. So he did make a difference in that regard. Unbeknownst at the time, we didn't know, but he did. He did make up the points.
Yeah.
So it's a case of, like, in my opinion, I got two really, not entertaining, but I'd say two of my favourite points of the season were that it was him getting, Bobby Thompson getting a second place, and Hill just, I'm not going to say dominating in the wet, but he was very close to it at least, to overcome a 10-second time penalty. I mean,
yeah, that is just insanity.
Was there any other favourite moments for you, Ben?
Yeah, my biggest one is right at the end of the season. I just thought, like, when it came down to it, Turkington had a job to do to help, like, with where he'd placed, he had a job to do to help Hill get the championship, and it was sort of like, if he'd not helped him by, like, letting him get past him when it was after the safety car went in on race 1 and stuff like that, and then he defended like an absolute animal, not to the point where he was making it unsafe for anyone, and not to the point where it was dickish defend. It was just like, if you want to get past me, you're going to have to pick your line. Like, I'm not going to let you just have it. And there was stuff like that, what he did, all the way through that weekend, what was just like, he was the guy, like, that weekend, and I'd say over the whole year, like last year, I slated him and said he didn't help Hill at all, you know, like, he could have done a better job. It was pathetic in my eyes. It's sort of like as if it was like, yeah, Hill's not really part of us, you know, of all that. It felt like that for me.
Yeah.
But this year, it was like, I felt like when Hill won, like, Turkington, you could see on his face, he was like, yeah, I helped, you know, I did that. That's a bit of mean. You could see when he was talking, saying that he talked to him about some stuff because he's been through it before, and he was saying stuff like that. And I was thinking, it's just insane of, like, he knew that when the time came, he was the guy who went into that weekend going, right, what am I going to do for Hill to win? And I think he must have gone into that weekend either having to sit down with Hill or with the team or in his own head going, if it needs to, what am I going to do? Because he just did it.
Yeah, I think, like you said, between the two of them, between Turkington and Hill, they worked more of a team this year. And it really showed, and it really pulled off. It really worked for him. I think
it was a good team dynamic.
Speaking of Turkington, though, one of the key things I will mention is that Turkington had a really good run of form. He didn't go on a winning streak or anything like that, But he got pole after pole after pole.
He was in the points a
He had
lot.
quite, like, his speed was really up there for pole positions this year.
Yeah, his speed was insane. Some weekends it was like, geez, he could be in a shot here.
It's not surprising how, based on where he qualified, I'm not surprised that he ended up getting the Goodyear Wingfoot Award because of how many poles he was getting in the laps he was pulling out.
That should have been his award because, like, there was some weekends where I was literally thinking, that's insane. I'm pretty sure in the second race, in fact, of the final at Brands Hatch GP, I think they put Turkington's set up on Hill's car instead because Turkington had the better car, and it was like, yeah, this setup we're just going to slap straight on Hill because whatever's going on with this setup, it's clearly the one to have today.
Was there any other? I mean, for me, just to kind of look again, looking through the season. So I'd probably say, like, one of the people that went on, I think he went under the radar, but he did a really good job, was Aaron Taylor-Smith.
Oh yeah,
he got two outright podiums,
I mean,
but the
Power
speed
Max
he got
racing
out of
as a
Astra
whole,
was brilliant.
that's what I mean. I really do hope Power Max Racing next year keep the form going what they've currently had. I wish they could somehow get enough funding and everything together to get a newer car, but whatever they're doing, that package is insanity. Like you said, it's just you never would have thought Aaron Taylor-Smith would be going for like third places and stuff reasonably often. Like if you look at his whole year, he was never out of the points the whole year. Yeah. He was in a points position all year long, and that's insane.
That's actually true, yeah, he was. He was never out of the points.
Yeah, he was never out of points.
He was at was Snetterton.
If you look at him, and then you really want to laugh, look at Moffat. Moffat retired more than anyone else all year. Who would you rather have in your team?
What was it, 7, 8 retirements?
7 I counted. That was quickly counting. But that's what I mean. You just look at it, and yeah, the retirements might not have all been his fault, but consistency in a sport like this will help you more at the end of the season than anything else. If you've got a guy who's never out of points, that's insane.
Let me ask you this question. So, like, for me, Aaron Taylor-Smith was a really nice surprise. He wasn't someone that I had money on at the start of the year. I did wish he would
I would have never put money on him finishing in the top 10. I would have said maybe in the top 8, possibly. Like, he could have been close to, like, I don't know, like 8th to 10, maybe there, but I wouldn't have said, like, 7th. Further than that. And even then, I wouldn't have put money on it. I wouldn't have gone, oh, yeah, he's going to finish in the top 10. I'd rather not.
Because I think when I was at the media day back in April, he was one of the guys that I went up to, and obviously I was just like, oh, it's Aaron Taylor-Smith, he's Power Max race, and I was like, I didn't really think much of it. And within like the first few race weekends, I was like, this guy's actually doing pretty good for a car that's really old at this point.
That's what I mean. I think they're hopefully having a nice resurgence, I hope, of a bit of form.
Yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do next year. I mean, we don't know much about the car. We know about some of the rules are being changed for next year, which we'll cover believe me, in a video.
That will be a different video because that's the whole topic.
But realistically, he's one of the guys that he flew under the radar. A lot of people probably didn't even notice him there, apart from when he was on the podium. But for me, he did stick out, and I'm happy that he did really well. He had a great, like you said, he had a consistent run. He might have been the only guy in the entire championship that actually was in the points all year. I don't think anyone else pulled that feat off.
All year, yes, as far as I can see.
He didn't have a single retirement.
But if you include from when they came in, Dan Zelos.
Yeah,
he never was out of the points.
Same with Bobby Thompson as well, but that's cheating, isn't it? We're talking full season.
Yeah, that's really talking on it, technically.
But
other than that, there's none that I can see off the top of my head. But yeah, that is just insane. And like you say, with
reminds me of a young Tom Ingram, to be honest.
Yeah, the 2 third places as well is like, I really hope the Power Max. That's what I mean. He got on with doing it. That's what I mean. I'd love to see next year. Hopefully, that form just either gets better or they keep it.
Yeah, I really hope they do. I mean,
because they are if you want an underdog team, BPMR, they are the underdog team that, obviously you want an underdog team that has a chance. Yeah, if you really want an underdog, go with Restart Racing. But if you want an underdog team that could do something insane, you can scream at your TV for them.
Well, like I said, here's the question for you then, is that who was the one person that was a nice surprise in the championship? Who do you think went underrated?
I'd say Dan Zelos. I never expected anyone to come in from a mini and do anything really. I wouldn't have said, oh, they could get in the top 15. I'd have been like, this is a championship where, there's some hard contenders to get past to get into that top 15. Yeah, you can ignore like the constant people who are in the top 6 and stuff. But if you look around the other parts of it, there's still people in there like Rob Huff and everything who you have to be battling with to be in that top 15, which I just think is good on him. Hopefully he can carry it on. But yeah, he was a really good surprise because obviously none of us had a clue he was going to be in this series this year. So when he came in and did that, like I had my eye on him anyway because I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. He's either going to write the car off like the minis do, or he's going to be interesting to watch. Is he going to be a clean racer? Is he going to be dirty like the minis are with each other? But as far as I could see, he was reasonably clean, and he was pretty good.
See, I was surprised you didn't say Huffy, to be honest. Given I thought you were going to go for Huffy.
Huffy is one of them people who I'd love to do well, and his first place were awesome. Like the memes going into where was it? Won it like 2,000 days or something since his last win in the BTCC.
20 years at this point.
Yeah, it was 20 years. Yeah, it was something like insanity. So that was really cool. But yeah, come on, he's a guy who's won in World Touring cars. He's Mr. Macau and all that. So he ain't a surprise for me. I sort of expect him to hopefully do better. I'm kind of like more on the, I wouldn't say disappointed, but more on the, I expect more of a guy that caliber. So in my eyes, he's like not
20 years on. The sport's evolved,
yeah, but still, if you're coming in from another touring car sport where you are dominant to here, you should be in the top 5.
One thing I will say, actually, so it's like once we're talking regarding people that I was hoping could do better. So people who, so would you have Huffy down as someone that you wanted to do well, but didn't do as good as you thought they did?
Him, yes, and also Josh Cook. I was hoping Josh Cook was going to do something. Now he's in a factory, sort of more proper manufacturer team. I was hoping he was going to do it possibly this year, and maybe being like the top 4 or top 3 going into the finale. I was hoping he was going to actually have an actual shot at it. I would have loved to have seen Josh Cook go for it instead of being Mr. Oh, look, if it was on podiums, he should have won it. Yeah, well, this year he wouldn't have had that anyway. But in every other year, it's usually he's the meme of on podiums he would have won.
Like, for me, one of the people that disappointed me this year, and I was really looking forward to seeing him do well, was Andrew Watson. How he moved from Vauxhall, and he pulled off some good drives, went to Toyota, and he just wasn't. He just couldn't do it. He had some good results near the start of the year, like Brands Indy and Snap, for example.
But other than that, it was just... He
was not touching the podiums. He barely scraped inside the top 10 most of the time. I mean, he finished behind Aidan Moffat in the championship, for Christ's sake. And it's like, it's bad when that sort of stuff happens. I mean, another person that I could say had a bad championship year, despite the fact he got a third and a second during the year, was, again, Dan Rowbottom. He was another one.
Yeah, he had
should have improved over last year in every way, because he had a bad year last year, and it was like, I can turn a new leaf. And he just couldn't do it.
Being with a team like
NAPA, had problems as well.
Being with a team like NAPA, it's rough when you're not doing it.
Yeah, your
like
teammates
the people
are
in
up
NAPA
there.
who are not good, and then you've got Camish and obviously Sutton who are absolutely fresh in that car.
Yeah,
something's not quite right with you. It can't be you saying, the car's crap and all this. No, mate. If your other 2 teammates are blitzing it and then there's 2 of you who are not doing well, you 2 are not doing well.
I mean...
And if your father's not paying the bill, you're the 3rd person in that team who might get the boot.
That's it. That's how it all works these days. I mean, one of the things I'll just kind of mention as well. So, just to go back to like the topic of the championship here, which is... whereabouts in the championship? So we'll go with Cook, Camish, Turkington, Sutton, Ingram and Hill. So we know that Hill's champion, Ingram was runner-up, and in my opinion we're going to discount those. from this conversation. So we're going to bring it down to Sutton, Turkington, Camish and Cook. So where do you think the championship title bid faltered? I don't mean like where they just completely got locked out of title contention, but where things started to go wrong. What was the one race or race weekend where you thought, yeah, I'm immediately going to start writing them off out of the title race?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Even for Sutton, even after Snet, he still had it. I'm pretty sure he was still highly up in the points. He might have even been leading for a bit. So for Sutton, I think I started discounting him at whatever point NAPA started having the open bonnet incidents happening and sort of...
Alton
it
Park,
must have been
I'd say.
around... Yeah, I was going to say Alton Park or Croft. I have it in my head as that was the point where I was like, that's it for him. You know, I sort of see, unless there's something insane happens with the other two, it's rough. For Turkington, I don't know. I never actually discounted him this year. I just sort of...
I did, but I only just.
I don't think I ever did.
I discounted him at the start of the year, despite the fact he got 2 wins at Brands Hatch Indy.
Yeah.
I actually discounted him because I was like, nah, Sutton's on form, Ingram's doing well. I mean, granted, there's a few non-scores and a few wins for Turkington. Say
It's
otherwise.
a few crosses.
Same with Hill retiring at the second race in Brands. But I do think that once we got past Snet, it was like, yeah, this is not Sutton. This is not Turkington's fight. It's Sutton, Ingram, and Hill's fight. This.
I think because I just kept seeing him do the fastest laps and thrashing that car, I never wrote him out.
I think the only times where I didn't write him out was, funnily enough, when he got the poles and the fastest laps and the wins.
Yeah.
So like
when it was
Croft
absolutely
race
thrashing.
1, Knockhill race 1, Donington GP race 1. Those are the only times where I was just like, yeah, he's not
fire.
bad. Yeah, he was pretty good at Knockhill. Pretty good. Speaking of other people,
Camish, I don't think I ever wrote him in it. I never wrote him in it this year. I don't know, but I sort of see, even though NAPA say it's all, you know, like they're letting them fight it out until they need to do team orders, I still see it as that's Sutton's team.
See, I'd say after...
I'm pretty sure the setup is Sutton's setup, and they all just sort of have to deal with a car being like that, because if you watch how it handles, it's the way Sutton likes it, where it can flip the rear end up and drive it on like 3 wheels half the time.
Well, I think
and
Knockhill...
you look at the others, that's not their setup.
I think Camish it would have been Knockhill. Because he got a 9th, a 7th, and 8th. And yeah, alright, results don't mean anything, because he got freaking 18th at Brands Hatch Indy. But usually, if something happens early in the year, you just write it off anyway. And just like, it's fine, I can catch it up. But I think by the time we got to Knockhill, Ash was still in the fight. And he were a fair bit ahead of Camish. Same with Turkington as well. Turkington were actually catching him up at that point.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hill and Ingram were at the head of the field. And I thought, yeah, it's getting to the point now where Camish really needs to pull something out, and he just hasn't done. He was doing seconds and thirds, as the table shows, but I just thought, no, he's not playing, because then he followed it up with an 8th and an 11th. Then he gets a win. By that, it's too late. Like, too late. You know, the championship's like gone at this point. There's no coming back. He could have been doing with winning early, obviously. Look at the draw and the dice, really, with how you perform. But I think with Camish, it came towards Knockhill after Knockhill and started Donington again, where he'd sort of dropped the ball and wasn't doing as good. And I
was going to say, for a lot of them, where he was in my head at Silverstone, that's where he was.
I think
Silverstone
was
just
just bad luck.
That was it. Yeah, Silverstone was like just one of them where I was like, wherever they are, that's where they are at this point. The only thing about Silverstone I remember thinking is, please don't let Hill's car suddenly die.
Yeah, it was just wet. That was the thing with Silverstone. Just a wet day.
Yeah, the only thing was I was just thinking, please, Sutton's car, do not die, do not die. And then when he was leading the race, like, oh no, he's going to die now, it's going to die.
That's the thing,
that was the only thing
them.
I can remember about Silverstone is me thinking if Hill's car dies, Ingram's got the championship.
It does make you wonder, like the championship or not. Like, you know, why the different points where we thought, yeah, title bid's over. I mean, the fact that they managed to get... I mean, Sutton was in title contention until he got to Brands Hatch, and then obviously the first race completely knocked him out.
Yeah.
But yeah, he were on the back foot when he come out of Silverstone. He was going into bronze anyway. He knew he had it all to do.
Yeah, completely. Well, imagine if in WSR they had Bobby Thompson instead of Adam Morgan for the year. What would it have been like completely different for them? He could have then been someone who you could have considered in the top 5.
I think he could have done
Yeah,
it.
you see what I mean, don't you? And their manufacturer's points would have been stupid.
That's it.
Adam Morgan's not a bad man. He's not a bad driver, but he's not that Bobby Thompson in that car level. I'd
say add about another 20 points for BMW onto what they finished
exactly.
with. I think, and that's what you would have had.
It would have been silly.
Like Thompson probably would have been. I'd say Thompson. This could be a bold statement, but I think Thompson probably would have been top 5. Just. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm
Camish,
thinking.
but he wouldn't have had
I reckon he
Turkington,
would have been
maybe.
just ahead of Camish.
I mean, they tied on points, Turkington and Camish, in the end, but I think they would have been. I mean, if he even broke top 3, that would have been a massive improvement. But I don't know.
That
would have been something else. But
I'm hoping he gets a drive next year with him. I'm hoping something gets figured out because if you look at it on consistency of the guy, come on.
I mean, 3 races doesn't say too much, but I think it's
but if you look at previous seasons and races, then you can sort of scope it out as he could do it. He's got crap cars up to the top of the grid, and that says enough.
Well, that's it, because it's like, apologies for the dogs barking in the background, but yeah, it's a case of, with everything that's happened this year, he's one of the what could have been stories of the year. And I think, and speaking of stories of the year, what's the one thing, in your opinion, the one race, the one moment in the year, where it was like, what could have been moment? Where would that have been for you, Ben?
This year, it was sort of one of them years where, I don't know, there was many things where, like, you could maybe say, like, PMR Racing, they've had a good couple of points this year, where if it had gone a different way, they could have had, like, their cars do insanely well and stuff. That could have been, like, a thing, I guess, in my mind, is things like that. I always look at the top teams and just look and think, well, that's where they are. You know, that's what's going to happen. Some of them are going to get it to top 5, it's guaranteed, but if you get these them plucky little other teams like PMR where something could have happened, the second Toyota team, really, as far as I'm aware, they should have been doing equally as well as the first Toyota team, if not, you know, better, because now there's a lot more of them. I always think a lot more should have better strategy, you know, go for it, but I don't know, nothing really came of that in my eyes enough. Like I said, Josh Cook, in my eyes, should, if he's been with that team and he's that good in the past, he should have finished in the top 4 at least.
Well, I think I've only got one race, and I watched it live in person. Race 3 at Alton Park, Mikey Doble, first win.
Oh,
now it slips away from Jake. Jake got him on the last lap, didn't he?
Yeah, that was good, Tim.
I was so annoyed. It's probably the most what could have been. Like, I know that's one race out of 30, but that stuck in my mind all year, and he never got a chance to win. I mean, we don't know. Maybe he might win a race next year, but holy crap, the fight that he had with Hill. Granted, it wasn't like tooth and nail, but Doble held off so brilliantly to stop Hill, and then he just couldn't stop him on the last lap, and I was like, no! I remember still trackside going, no, don't let him pass.
Yeah,
he got past, like, God damn it!
It was like with Lloyd when his car, obviously, when it just gave up to go.
Oh, God, I was there for that as well. I guess it's just me, I'm just a bad luck charm.
I think you are, yeah, because I was nearly crying at that one watching on the TV, because I was screaming
terrible.
like, the plucky underdog's going to do him. And then when it didn't, I literally turned it off. I was like, I don't care. I don't want to see the rest of this.
That was a horrific scene last year,
I
but for me, it was definitely
obviously, I watched it back. As soon as they cut to him to take an interview with him, I turned it off and muted it. Because I was like, I have to watch it back to cover it on this, but I'm not. That's just not right.
Yeah, that'll be difficult. I mean, the thing is, like I said, for me, it's definitely Doble, Alton Park, race 3.
Yeah,
I don't think there's anything else that I can think of.
Could have been.
It's like,
no, like I say, I don't think there's any what are insane this year for me. I can think of ones last season, but not this year.
Well, that's the only one that I can think of. But just to mention a story that made the news for all the wrong reasons in touring cars this year. You covered it before, which was the NAPA cars falling to pieces quite easily, constantly coming in and stuff like that. They got it fixed the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But the first half, the cars just fall bits for fun.
They were like built like Legos. The things are just
broke.
The bonnet was having a problem, or
loose bodywork. It's on Sutton's car, and it's like, oh, for God's sake, no.
Yeah, it's just like, really, they come on. Like,
I think that was the reason
season.
His Alton Park weekend was so bad, because he was doing really well, and all of a sudden they had to call him in to rip the panel off, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, it was just a...
Well, you've got to obey it, it's the rules, but it shouldn't have happened. I mean, Camish,
if the meatball flag comes out, that's it, game over for you.
Yeah, Camish and Rowbottom and all the rest of them, they'll all agree and say, well, yeah, basically. It shouldn't have happened, and NAPA knows that they need to build better cars than that.
Yeah, I think they must have done something to change weight around the car, and I'm pretty sure it involved something with the panels, because it didn't happen to them the year before or anything. So I think they must have done something like changed the fasteners or maybe gone for a different supplier when they built the car. But whatever they did, it killed their championship.
Yeah,
and especially
really
Sutton's.
Yeah, I think had they fixed it, would have been a better run for Sutton at least. Well, I mean, it didn't hinder Sutton's championship too bad, but it did hinder his own part, which was one of the main reasons of riding off.
A lot better there. Imagine if the other two races had been as consistent as the first race for him. He could have had like another second place. They could finish like third or fourth in the final.
But his car was slower this year compared to last. Either that or the teams caught up. Probably was the teams caught up, didn't they?
I think it's the other teams caught up on the hybrid system, which is kind of sad in the thing we'll get into when we talk about next year.
It is a big shame. It is a big shame. I mean, personally speaking, though, I mean, to kind of, regardless of bad luck and good luck and who ended up winning the title, overall thoughts, Ben? 2024.
Good season. Really good season.
Best season we've had for a couple of years, or would you still say Ingram's
insanely good?
22?
No. This season, I can't think of a weekend where I didn't enjoy it. And most seasons, I never say it on camera, and I never try and let it be known, but Silverstone is so boring. I've struggled to watch it. I try and avoid it if I can. I can't be bothered. I hate the track. I hate the place. They charge too much. It's so boring. I'd literally rather watch paint dry. But this year, it was such a good weekend for different reasons. It was so good. Like, everything was good this year, and every weekend I had something what I liked about each weekend. For me, it was such a good season. I think it was helped by NAPA not being dominant, because it was different people going for it all the time. Like you said, at one point we could have had like Doble have a win, which, you know, that's just adding more people to the mix. Aaron Taylor-Smith getting the third place, I don't think that would have happened on the NAPA domination year. Like, it wouldn't have, you know, it couldn't have happened.
Yeah, I think apart from, I mean, from my perspective, I think it was really good to watch the season because, you know, you've had a good title fight because we didn't know who was going to win, which is always the reason with touring cars anyway. That's the idea of touring cars, to not know who's going to win to the very last moment, the very last second, the very last...
Well, it was literally basically the last lap, because if Hill's car had like just gone and died on the last lap, Ingram would have had it. So it literally went to the last lap.
But the point being is that we had a title fight that went all the way through to the end. Sutton tried staying in it, same with Turkington, but they fell out of contention towards the end of the season, as it just happens. I don't mean just like Sutton, Turkington, it's just we've not had a title fight where it's been like 6 people since like, what, 2018, is it?
Yeah, it'll be...
I think where they're like 6 or 7 people, where they're all in for a shout.
You always try and say, oh, these 5 could do it, but realistically, there's like
2 or 3.
2 of them where the other people's cars literally have to break down every race for them to actually win it, and they'd have to still get first.
But I will say, Ingram and Hill this year have been the class of their own. Like, that's nothing against any of the other drivers. Sutton had his chance last year. Ingram and Sutton fought tooth and nail in 2022, where Ingram came off victorious. And Hill has drove really well. I mean, apart from the 1 or 2 races where, like I said, he put a foot wrong at Brands Hatch, he didn't do well at Croft. He was really out of top 6. He kept there with point scoring, kept the consistency up, kept the speed up, which was very impressive. All against a resurgent Ingram, who, by the way, had 2 retirements versus Hills 1 during the season. There's a few more non-point scoring, but points do mean prizes. They knew that. And it ended up being a case where the season went through all sorts of twists and turns. We ended up with a new champion, something I couldn't be happier with. I honestly think it's great that we've got another brand new champion. And it just also makes me want to hope that next year, alongside rule changes, is going to be an even better year. It's definitely, I'll be honest, it's night and day. Whether you're a Sutton fan or not, whether you hate him, love him, it was night and day compared to last year. Last year was a dominant show, and for a Sutton fan like me, yeah, alright, I wasn't asked for that. But for the general public, a lot of people did think the touring cars, and maybe you yourself included, found it very boring because he dominated so bad.
Yeah, it wasn't a good season. Like, in my eyes, the domination of it, and I like Sutton, but the domination of it just made me go...
It wasn't just that, though. Once he went, he went. Whereas with this, it's like, these guys have been fighting tooth and nail. There's been a lot more fighting in the field, at the front, in the middle, and at the back. That's another thing. I know we haven't really mentioned it, but the hybrid system this year has been fantastic in providing racing that's been very close, very tooth and nail. And obviously the cars have changed and have adapted and so on as well. So it is a mix. It's a mix of driver, car, hybrid use, the full lot. But overall, this season, I'd say brilliant. Same as you, Ben.
Yeah, amazing. I loved it.
Which, being honest, with all that being said and done, I think that's going to wrap up our season review.
Yeah, that's a nice place to end.
Yeah, nice place to end. So, overall, 2024, you've been a fantastic season. And honestly, we can't wait.
You've been fantastic for different reasons.
And we'll look forward to seeing what 2025 holds. May the games continue between the top drivers. And who knows, we might get another new champion. Or is Hill going to have a second title? Ingram going to have a third? Or a second, should I say? I don't know yet. It's like, is it going to be Hill or Ingram that gets a second title next year? Or is someone going to make it 5? Or Turkington? Or maybe a new champion in Cavendish or Cook. We don't know. But for the season overall, let us know, as usual, down in the comment section, what you thought of this year's season. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Let us know what your personal favourite highlights were regarding the championship. And yeah, we'll look forward to catch up with you guys in the new year. In 2025 for more frolics and fun regarding the British Touring Car Championship, alongside a few other bits and pieces that we do here on the channel. But from myself and from Ben, thank you very much for listening or watching, and hope you have a great day, night, evening, wherever you are in the world. And we'll see you guys in our next video with the British Touring Car Championship. So until then, thanks for watching, have yourself a great night, and of course, as always, ta-ra.
Alright.